So just a quick recap. Chapter 7 specifically deals with topic number 5. It describes God. And what's the other topic that we said chapter 7 particularly deals with? Last time we talked about this. It speaks about Ishvar, God, and one other topic in particular.
Ishwar Jai.
I heard Ishwar and then?
Material world, Prabhu.
Material world, yes, Prakriti. So it deals with both, and it teaches us how we can see God through the material world. So the first section glorified hearing about Krishna. And then the second section described how Krishna is present everywhere, in all things, in all places, in all situations. But particularly, Krishna is present as the essence of all things. So we came up to this point here. We completed the first section, and now we are starting the second section, describing how Krishna is pervading this entire material world. Mahavishnu creates the total material energy, Garbhodakshai Vishnu. As Garbhodakshai Vishnu, he enters into all the universes to create diversities in each of them. As Kshirodakshai Vishnu, he is diffused as a super soul in all the universes and in everyone's heart. So first of all, Krishna has 3 Vishnu forms. From Mahavishnu, the entire material creation emanates. Garbhodakshai Vishnu is Vishnu that enters into each universe. And then Kshirodakshai Vishnu is the Vishnu that is present within every heart and every atom. So like this, Krishna is a source of all things, and Krishna also enters into all things. And we spoke about this, how the metaphor that the Gita uses to describe Krishna's relationship with the material world is Sutre Manigana Eva, that Krishna is the thread that is putting all the pearls together, that is bringing all the pearls together. Therefore, he is the essence of all things. He's the person who brings everything together, that creates things and keeps it together, keeps it in place. But there's another reason why the metaphor of thread is being used. Why is the metaphor of a necklace with Krishna being the thread being used? Yes, Purnamasi, Mataji.
Just like how the thread holds everything, but it is not conspicuous, right? It's not out there. It just shows how he is behind everything. Yet, people on the outside are just looking at the necklace, but not the thread that holds everything together. So it just speaks of his significant role in everything.
Yes, very nice. Thank you. Krishna, although Krishna brings everything together, Krishna is the creator of all things. And anything that we accomplish in this world is only by Krishna's mercy. Without Krishna, nothing can happen. Yet Krishna remains hidden because of the desire of the conditioned soul. We don't want to see the Lord. So therefore, out of his kindness, he hides himself so we can try to enjoy this material world without him. Of course, our success is not there. We're unsuccessful in this attempt. But just by our own efforts, we cannot see Krishna. He's hidden in this world. Therefore, the importance of hearing. We must hear from Shastra in order to know how Krishna is present in this material world. And the last one is how the Mayavadis this bar here is not moving, so I can't read the bottom slides. You know, the Zoom bar that comes. I don't know why it's, here we go. Okay, perfect. Okay, so, and Krishna also clarifies in this verse that, as we discussed last time, that there's nothing superior to Krishna, and this defeats the Mayavadis. So Srila Prabhupada, he particularly stressed that Krishna is a person, and therefore, this chapter and these verses are very important. So I'm going to share this verse with you so we can read it together. So this verse is a statement of personalism, because what the Mayavadis say is that Krishna is God, but Krishna is not the Parabrahman. The Parabrahman is impersonal, they say. But here Krishna is establishing that he is the Parabrahman. Matta parataram nanyat kinchidasti dhananjaya Mai sarvam idam protam sutre manigana eva. He says, Matta, beyond me, parataram, superior, na, not. The very first three words establish that there's nothing beyond me, Krishna is saying. Personal or impersonal, there's nothing beyond Krishna. Kinchidasti dhananjaya. Mai sarvam idam proktam sutre mani igana eva. So he is the ultimate truth. Everything rests on Krishna, as pearls are strung on a thread. One second. तुम्हारा हो गया? So this verse is establishing personalism, that Krishna is the supreme person, because nothing is beyond Krishna. And therefore, Srila Prabhupada quoted this verse very often. He greatly liked this verse because Krishna is establishing that the absolute truth is a person. So now Krishna tells us that he is the essence of all things. And I think did we cover this last time, that how Krishna is the essence of this slide? Did we cover it last time?
Yes.
Yes, we covered it. Okay. So I won't go through it in detail. We already covered it. Okay. And I think that's where we stopped, or did we cover these also? Anyone remember? Did we cover these slides?
I believe we covered these slides, but I could be wrong.
Yes, Prabhu, we covered them.
Okay. So Krishna is describing how he's the syllable Om, he's the sound of ether, he's sex life that's according to religious principles. He's describing how he's the strength of the strong, the heat and fire, the fragrance of the earth, the penance of ascetics, the life of all that lives, the intelligence of the intelligent, the prowess of powerful men. He's the light of the sun and the moon. He's the ability in man, and he's the taste of water. So this last one, that Krishna is the taste of water, is one that is quoted by Srila Prabhupada very often, because the tongue is very, very strong, right? In the Nectar of Instruction, Rupa Goswami says how the tongue is always making us, driving us in different places. And the tongue likes taste, but the taste of all things is water. Unless there's water in something, you cannot taste it. Unless you have water in your mouth, you cannot taste anything. So Krishna is a taste of water. So Krishna says, Rasoham apsukonteya. Any liquid thing, the taste which attracts you, that is I am. Even you are a drunkard, you are fond of tasting wine. I should recommend that you simply think that the taste of wine is Krishna. That will make a yogi of you. That will make you the greatest yogi. If you simply think like this, that I am tasting wine, oh, very nice taste. So when Srila Prabhupada says things, we have to also understand the context of what he says. And it is not that by drinking wine we become a yogi. But what Prabhupada here is saying, that if we taste anything, including wine, if we think that, this taste of this wine is Krishna, the taste of this wine is the taste of Krishna, then what happens? We make spiritual advancement. Because anything that is tasty is nothing else than the energy of Krishna. We make spiritual advancement, and therefore, then we come closer to Krishna. As we come closer to Krishna, then gradually the taste of wine will go away. We will stop drinking wine, and we will become more and more attached to Krishna. This is Krishna. If there's any loss, if you think like that, this is Krishna consciousness. Rasoham apsukonteya. I am the shining of the sun and the moon. Now, every day morning, you see the sun shining. So as soon as you see the sun shining, if you think, oh, Krishna, oh, this sun shining is Krishna, you become a yogi. You become a yogi. At night also, as soon as you see the moon shine, so immediately if you think, this moon shining is Krishna. So the quality of a devotee, practically what does this mean to us? The quality of a devotee is that he sees Krishna, he or she sees Krishna in all situations, in all people, in all exchanges, in everything. Because the devotee sees that, well, this is the external circumstance, but behind this external circumstance is Krishna. So Krishna is coming to me in this way. Krishna is teaching me in this way. Krishna is interacting with me in this way. So one time Srila Prabhupada was sitting in the sun, and the sun was shining in, and there's this beautiful big window, and Prabhupada is sitting there, his golden body is being bathed by the sun. And one devotee comes in, and Srila Prabhupada, you could see, is enjoying the sun. And the devotee says, oh, Srila Prabhupada, the sun is so nice. And Prabhupada said, for you, this is just the sun. But for the devotee, this is the embrace of the Lord. This is, he said, this is sitting in the palm of the Lord, being embraced by the Lord. So Krishna's, the sun is one of Krishna's eyes, right? So the sun is also a representative of Krishna, and the devotee is thinking, when the sun is shining and nourishing me, then it is actually the embrace of Krishna. Now you may say, well, the sun also burns. Yes, that is also the punishment of Krishna. We're in this material world, and Krishna through the sun is also burning us. He's also punishing us, maybe with a heat stroke or something like this. Similarly, when a devotee meets another person and that person is very kind to him, the devotee thanks that person. At the same time, the devotee understands that this is Krishna coming to me through this person. Not that this person is Krishna, but Krishna is coming to me through this person. Or if someone is very unkind to a devotee, then the devotee thinks, well, this is Krishna teaching me a lesson. Or what is Krishna teaching me through this person or through this situation? What is it that I need to learn through this situation? And therefore, the devotee is never distressed or never bewildered in any situation. Because the devotee knows that whatever happens, it is simply the arrangement, the plan of Krishna, the plan of the Lord. I am the essence and origin of everything in the three modes of nature. This may arouse a doubt. Taste, strength, power, sexuality, etc. are all objects within the three modes of nature. If Krishna is all of those things, is he also within the modes of nature? In answer, Krishna states, I am the origin of all essences, and I am the origin of all of the modes themselves. Therefore, I am never subordinate to them. So Krishna is the origin of everything, but Krishna is not subordinate to them. Krishna is the essence of all things, but that doesn't mean that Krishna is overcome by them. Krishna gives, just like, the sun rays comes from the sun. This doesn't mean that the sun rays covers the sun. Rather, the sunlight, the dazzling effulgence of the sunlight may blind our eyes, but it does not blind the eyes of the sun. So Krishna is the source of Maya. Maya is Krishna's power, but Krishna is never covered by Maya. Why don't people know about you? Arjuna asks. Because they're bewildered by the three modes of nature. So why isn't it that we are now able to see Krishna in all situations, in all places, in all things, in the way that Krishna is described? He says, because everyone is bewildered by these modes of material nature, and these modes are overcoming us. So now I'm going to switch back to the Bhagavad Gita for 1 minute so we can read this verse. Tribhir gunamayir bhavair ebhir sarvam idam jagat mohitam na bijanati mamebhya param avyayam. Deluded by the three modes, goodness, passion, and ignorance, the whole world does not know me, who am above the modes and inexhaustible. So the problem here is that the sutra, the thread is not visible. We do not know Krishna. We don't see Krishna in all these things. We forget that he's the source of this world because of the modes of nature, goodness, passion, and ignorance. So the devotee reminds himself that he is not the modes. There's times in our life when we feel very dejected, when we feel very unhappy. There's times in our life when we feel sleepy or we feel really excited or happy. But these are all creations of the modes of nature. And the devotee reminds himself, I'm not these modes. I'm not ignorance. I'm not passion. I'm not even goodness. Goodness can condition oneself to a sense of arrogance, that I am very good, I'm very peaceful, and therefore I will not disturb my peace. But this is not us. Goodness, passion, and ignorance are the modes, and I am beyond the modes. So one Maharaj in our movement, he would say this when devotees would get disturbed or anything. He would say, "You are not the modes. Don't forget that this is not who you are. Not the modes of nature." So as soon as the modes start to overcome us in some way, lust, anger, greed, then we have to know, I'm not the modes of nature. This is simply the modes that is acting. Next verse, text 14, Krishna says, very famous verse, very, very famous verse. I believe this is a memorization verse for you this week. Daivihesha gunamayi mama maya duratyaya mameva ye prapadyante mayametam tarantite. So this energy that covers the whole world, due to which we cannot see the Lord, we are unable to ascertain the Lord's presence in this world. This divine energy is none other than Krishna's energy. This divine energy of mind, consisting of the three modes of material nature, is difficult to overcome. But those who have surrendered unto me can easily cross beyond it. So the goal is to cross beyond this ocean of material existence. And how do we do it? We do it by surrendering to Krishna. We must surrender to Krishna. And through that process of grace, by surrendering to Krishna, we get his mercy, his grace. Krishna carries us beyond this material world in a boat. He takes us to the other side. However, there's a problem here. The problem is that we don't want to surrender. We feel that no, this material energy is very nice, and we keep on wanting to enjoy it. But this material nature, Maya is this divine energy. Daivi hesha gunamayi mama maya duratyaya. So this Maya is Krishna's Maya. What is Maya? Maya is gunamayi, is composed of the three modes. This very Maya is composed of these three modes that we talked about in the last verse, that are conditioning everyone. And due to these modes, we don't want to surrender. But what Krishna is saying is that if you surrender, the result of surrender is you'll go beyond these modes of nature. So when we are really in the modes of goodness, passion, and ignorance, what should we do? When we're completely distressed, we're distraught, we are feeling bewildered, we should simply surrender to Krishna. We should throw up our hands and say, "Oh Krishna, please save me. Please guide me. Please protect me." Just like Draupadi did. Draupadi was a very great devotee of Krishna because in her most difficult times and her most difficult time, she completely depended upon the Lord. She took complete shelter of the Lord. Now, taking shelter of Krishna also means executing his will. It also means activity. It means doing the right thing. But it must be done in the mood of surrender, that I'm surrendering to Krishna. I'll read the last paragraph of Prabhupada's purport here. The words Mam Eva are also significant. Mam means unto Krishna, Vishnu only, and not Brahma or Shiva. Although Brahma and Shiva are greatly elevated and are almost on the level of Vishnu, it is not possible for such incarnations of Rajogun, passion, and Tamogun, ignorance, to release the conditioned soul from the clutches of Maya. In other words, both Brahma and Shiva are under the influence of Maya, are also under the influence of Maya. Only Vishnu is the master of Maya. Therefore, he alone can give release to the conditioned soul. The Vedas, Shetashvara Upanishad, confirms this is the phrase, Tameva Viditva, or freedom is possible only by understanding Krishna. Even Lord Shiva affirms that liberation can be achieved only by the mercy of Vishnu. Lord Shiva says, Mukti pradata sarvesham Vishnur eva na samshaya. There is no doubt that Vishnu is the deliverer of liberation for everyone. So, in the Bhagavatam, there's one verse that when Maya comes before the Lord, then she goes away as if ashamed. In front of the Lord, Maya becomes very ashamed because she cannot overcome the Lord. Her material potency is nothing in front of Krishna's spiritual potency. But if we worship anyone else, if we surrender to anyone else, the result will not be the same because they're under the modes of nature. They are still, you could say, in contact with these modes of nature. And only Krishna or Vishnu is beyond these modes and can therefore give us freedom from these modes of nature. Prabhupada says up here, Krishna, being the Lord of the illusory energy, can order this insurmountable energy to release the conditioned soul. He orders this release out of his causeless mercy on the surrendered soul and out of its paternal affection for the living entity who was originally a beloved son of the Lord. Therefore, surrender unto the lotus feet of the Lord is the only means to get free from the clutches of the stringent material nature. And Srila Prabhupada explains in this purport that surrender to Krishna is synonymous to surrendering or taking guidance from the spiritual master. Therefore, the devotee should search out the spiritual master, because how do we know if we're surrendering to Krishna? We know we can surrender to Krishna when we surrender to the bona fide spiritual master, and the bona fide spiritual master is pleased with us. We don't know if Krishna is pleased, but we can know if the spiritual master is pleased, because we can ask him or they tell us like this. So surrender means devotional service. Devotional service also means following the instructions of the spiritual master. So Krishna tells us that this energy is under his control. Those who surrender unto it, they can cross over it. And now he tells, well, what happens to those who don't surrender? Or who are those who don't surrender? There are 4 types of people. And these 4 types of people are us. So be aware. Krishna is telling us not to be these 4 types of people. Namam dushkritino mudha prapadyante naradhama mayaya parhita jnana asuram bhavamashrita. Those miscreants who are grossly foolish, who are the lowest among mankind, whose knowledge is stolen by illusion and who partake of the atheistic nature of demons, do not surrender unto me. So Krishna is saying 4 types of people don't surrender unto Krishna. Those who are grossly foolish, who are duskritina, mudha. Mudha means ass, who just work like an ass day and night, rather than pursuing the ultimate goal of life, the ultimate aim of life. They just work like an ass day and night. So those miscreants are grossly foolish, who are lowest among mankind, whose knowledge is stolen by illusion, and who partake of the atheistic nature of demons, do not surrender unto Krishna. So what is the difference between these 4 types of people? We will now look into this very closely in the slides. Here we go. So by this was text 14 that we read. Only by surrendering to Krishna, Daivi Hisham Gunamai, can we cross this material energy. And I gave you the example of Draupadi. This is also Ramanujacharya. He talks about prapatti, how through prapatti, through surrender to God, one can attain the Lord. He in fact said that bhakti is very difficult. To do bhakti nicely is very almost impossible for us. But what we can do in this day and age is just surrender to Krishna. And that's why you see the great devotees, even in our movement, they became so great. Why? Because they just surrendered to Srila Prabhupada. They gave their life to Srila Prabhupada. They surrendered unto him, and they just did what he asked them to do. And that was the greatest perfection. So someone may feel, well, why should I just, the process of, bhakti is there. Why should I just follow Prabhupada and follow the spiritual master? Because that is the very process of bhakti. Krishna is saying that real spiritual advancement begins with surrender. And then, as I mentioned, those who surrender cross beyond it. And why don't people surrender? Well, there's 4 reasons or types of people who don't surrender. There's 4 types of people who don't surrender, and these are the reasons why they don't surrender. Number 1, the mudhas don't surrender, those who are very much foolish. And the reason why is because they're simply attached to fruitive work. So we see this very often in India, in the land of India, that people sometimes are very, very attached to their materialistic religion, performing rituals, performing ceremonies, this and that. But they're not attached, or if you ask them to engage in the process of pure devotional service, hearing, chanting, just for spiritual development rather than some material development, their level of interest is less. Why? Because they want fruitive work. They want to get some material fruit from their devotional service. Number 2, Naradhama. They have no genuine spiritual culture and are enamored by material culture. So those who are lowest among men, Naradhama, it's not just that they're working hard, they may not even work. They are just drunk. They are bar hoppers, just sitting in the bars all the time. There's no spiritual culture there. There's no interest in spiritual life. It's only a material culture, material civilization, material enjoyment. And that degrades the soul rather than elevates the soul. See, that's why Varnashram is so important and Vedic culture is so important, and why Srila Prabhupada spent so much time developing Vaishnava culture, Vedic culture. Because unless people are taught to be spiritual, the people who join will be one amongst, far and in between, as they say. The people who join will be very few. Because in general, society is not spiritual or spiritually conscious. And for that reason, because society is not spiritually God conscious, when the opportunity for bhakti yoga is provided to them, they won't take it up. They're not interested. And why in materialistic cultures, you'll see it's very, very difficult for people to accept spiritual life. Very difficult. Like I was just in India, again, another example. And there, when devotees preach, then they make hundreds of devotees. Hundreds of devotees, left and right. Now it's becoming more difficult, but at least it used to be like this. Why? Because the spiritual culture was already there. It just needed to be fanned. And then people were ready to become devotees. The temples in India, they have hundreds of devotees living in them, thousands of devotees living outside, no shortage of devotees. One devotee was telling me that in the temples in India, If a householder wants to worship the deity, they get 2 days in 1 year. So they have to wait the whole year to serve the deities for 2 days. This is how many devotees they have. And here in America, temples are searching for devotees. Can anyone please come and do this artik or worship the Lord or clean the temple? Because materialistic culture, people are too busy in their materialism, they're too enamored by material life, therefore there's no time for spiritual life. And that is called naradhama. Then the third one is the range of their knowledge is devoted only to the material world. This is called maya parita jnana. This is actually the most, in some ways, difficult to deal with, because people who are intelligent, they can be a huge help to the Sankirtan movement, or they can also, people who are intelligent can be the most difficult to convince, because with this knowledge comes pride, comes arrogance. Oh, I don't need to hear, I don't need to take guidance. So for that reason, they become illusioned. And their knowledge, their education is what misguides them. Their education leads them in the wrong direction. And the last one is they're envious towards God and openly atheistic. This is the asuram bhava mashrita. So this is a different case. You would say, well, this is the same as number 2, but it's not the same. Why? Because in number 2, they're very fallen. They have no spiritual culture. They have no knowledge of the spiritual life. But in this last one, this is where a person may even have the knowledge, may be very cultured, but because they're envious of the Lord, they decry the Lord. Just like if you see Hiranyakashipu, he was very, very learned. When his brother Hiranyaksh, when he dies, then Hiranyakashipu goes and instructs all of his relatives about the science of the soul. So he knew, he had knowledge about spiritual life. He knew what the soul was, and he knew everything about that. But because he was envious of God, because he was envious of Krishna, he was always against him. He was trying to fight against him always. And he was atheistic. He was openly against the Lord. So these are some images about the people who do come to Krishna and the people who don't. People who need something. Right? Chaturvidha bhajante mam. There's 4 types of people who do approach the Lord. Those who are in knowledge, those who want to surrender unto him, those who are inquisitive, who are seeking the truth, don't have the truth but are seeking the truth, those who are distressed due to some illness, or those who are in need of money. These 4 approach the Lord. And these 4 types of people, they don't approach the Lord, they go against the Lord, and they are therefore overcome by the modes of nature. The Maya Parita Jnana, the Naradhama, the Mudha, and Asuram Bhavam Ashrita. Those who are against Krishna. Is this clear? These 4 types of people who decry the Lord. So we have to think for ourselves, why am I not surrendering to Krishna? I'm not a Mayavadi. I'm not trying to ignore the Lord through my knowledge. I'm not envious of God. I'm also not drinking or smoking. But maybe I'm not surrendering to Krishna because I'm a mudha. I'm just working too much for material life. and I need to spend more time in spiritual life, right? So for someone, this may be their anartha. For another person, it may be too much knowledge. They're scientists, philosophers, so all the time they're reading about the things of this material world. And as a result of that, their consciousness is fixed on material endeavors. So very important that we take up spiritual life and take up spiritual endeavors fully. And therefore we observe ourselves and we observe others as to why isn't it that we surrender to Krishna. Prabhupada writes in the purport to this verse, Mudas are those who are grossly foolish, like hardworking beasts of burden. The ass sings poetry and philosophy sometimes, but this braying sound only disturbs others. The foolish fruitive worker who does not know for whom he should work. He does not know that karma, action, is meant for yajna or sacrifice. Here's the ass, right? The ass thinks, Prabhupada says, why the mudas compared to the ass? The ass thinks that in order to eat this clump of grass, which is available everywhere, I need to serve my master, who's a master in this material world. And therefore, in an effort to serve the master just to get some grass, the ass works day and night, even though it doesn't need to. Especially in previous times when there were so many forests, it could just go in the forest and eat. But it's a very, you could say, domestic animal because it needs guidance. It's the ass is a fool. So similarly, in the material world, we think that for this small enjoyment, I need to do this, all these things. But Krishna is saying, no, that's not necessary. Those who work very hard day and night to clear the burden of self-created duties say that they have no time to hear of the immortality of the living being. So people say, the most common response when you go to try to give spiritual knowledge, people say, I don't have any time. I have no time. I have no time. Well, the reason why we don't have time is because we're mudha. It's our fault why we don't have time to serve Krishna, because we are working too hard for our material ambitions. Just like even children now, they participate in everything. They're part of all the leagues, all the sports teams, all the swimming teams, everything. And therefore they have no time. And then their parents have no time because then they have to go and watch the games of all their students, of all their children. So this is a self-created duty. It's a burden. And therefore a devotee doesn't work hard day and night. He works for Krishna day and night, but not for himself. The Naradhama, or the lowest of mankind, those who are socially and politically developed, but who have no religious principles, must be considered Naradhamas. The Naradhama, or the lowest of mankind, those who are socially and politically developed, but who have no religious principles, must be considered Naradhamas. Nor is religion without God religion. So sometimes externally people are very religious, but if they're not approaching Krishna for the real principles of dharma, that is surrendering to Krishna, if they're not approaching Krishna for bhakti, for devotion, but simply they're approaching Krishna for something material, they're still Naradhamas. Prabhupada is saying here in the purport. It is a duty of the guardians of the children to revive the divine consciousness dormant in them. So material world, the problem is that we are making our children and therefore society into Naradhamas. We give them all the material things in this world, the sports, the toys, the video games, the TV, the cell phone, the laptop, everything we give them. And all of this simply pulls their consciousness down. We give them all of this, but we don't give them spiritual life. We don't give them Krishna consciousness. And that is our big mistake. Then Maya Paritagyana, Prabhupada describes, or those persons whose erudite knowledge has been nullified by the influence of the illusory material energy. They are mostly very learned fellows, great philosophers, poets, literary scientists, etc. But the illusory energy misguides them, and therefore they disobey the Supreme Lord. So they are greatly learned people. Even in the last verse, right, Prabhupada was saying that this slide, that the Naradhamas can be in very high political positions. So materially, they're very sophisticated, but no good. Just like Prabhupada said in one place, it's better to be a failure in spiritual life than a success in material life. When we're successful in material life, we can, feel very good about ourselves, but there's actually no gain if we have not understood our spiritual life, if we're not developing our spiritual life, because all of that is just external. It's just the suit and tie. In the same way, the Maya Paritagyana has so much knowledge, but it's his or her very knowledge that binds him to this world, because they don't engage in Krishna's devotional service, in his unalloyed bhakti. They're learned, but they become misguided because they're not taking guidance from a spiritual master or Krishna, and they end up disobeying Krishna's blessings. They disobeying Krishna's instructions, and they don't receive Krishna's blessings. Sometimes when people have knowledge, like with academics, they become even more convinced, or they become even more confident of themselves, and they thus don't take religion or even sinful life seriously. They laugh at it because of their knowledge. They don't take religion seriously. They're not even afraid of God. They think, oh, actually this is all, they think that they've understood the nature of God, or they say that actually this is not all true or important. It's just created by a human being. So in this way, they disobey the Lord. And the last one is Asuram Bhavam Ashrita, or those of demoniac principles. This class is openly atheistic. So Asuram Bhavam Ashrita means developing the qualities of the asuras. And such asuras, unless they get some very amazing mercy of a very great devotee, generally they cannot join Krishna consciousness. Just like people who are engaged in very heavy sinful activities, they generally don't come to the temple. They generally don't hear spiritual knowledge. They're generally not interested in changing their life. So this is not innocence. Muda and Naradhama can be somewhat innocent, but this is more openly demoniac and atheistic. Okay, so now we are continuing on with part 2 of chapter 7. So we already covered this. There's 4 types of people who don't surrender to Krishna because they haven't surrendered unto him. And these 4 types of people now, in this verse, Chaturvidha bhajante mam, Vinasakritarna Arjuna, Artha jigyasir arthati jnani cha, arthati Jnanicha Paratarshava. The Artha, those who need relief from distress, they surrender to Krishna. So they're coming still for something. They're still a little bit like the Mudhas or the Naradhamas who come to God for material things. But they're coming in the mood of devotion, and that purifies them. They're requesting the Lord, kindly give this to me. Everything belongs to you. I'm in need of something, so kindly give this facility to me, or give this to me. The second one is those who want money or opulence. They come to Krishna. So I know one man, he came to the temple because the next day he was going to the auction and he wanted to win the auction. So the day before he came to the temple. The third one is those who have become inquisitive, jigyasu. They want to know the truth. College students, any students, they're seeking out God. Even our son and daughter who are 2 and 5 years old, they're very inquisitive about Krishna. So that is jigyasu. That's very nice, and that brings us closer to God. And the last one is those who are wise, or jnani. They already have the knowledge, and in knowledge they come to Krishna. And then therefore Krishna says that among these four, the one who's the dearest to him is the pujari of the Lord. So these four types of people are not on the level of pure devotional service, right? Just like when Dhruva Maharaj, when he goes to Krishna, seeking out the kingdom, then at that point, he's not on the level of pure devotional service. He's on the level of someone who is an artha or artharthi. He's distressed by the harsh words of his stepmother, and he wants the kingdom. Therefore, he wants material opulence. So he's not a pure devotee at that time. But by the process of intense devotional service, tivrena bhakti yogena, he becomes a pure devotee of the Lord. And this is why approaching Krishna with devotion and under the guidance of a spiritual master, Dhruva Maharaj had the guidance of Narad Muni. For any reason, if we approach Krishna, we become spiritually advanced. We will become a pure devotee of the Lord very, very soon. And this is a verse that many of you covered in Nectar Devotion. Anya Bilashita Shunyam Jnana Karma Dhyanavritam Anukulena Krishnanu Shilanam Bhaktiruttama. One should render transcendental loving service to the Supreme Lord, Krishna, favorably and without desire for material profit or gain through fruitive activities or philosophical speculation. That is called pure devotional service. So here it is being defined that if someone is coming for anything material, then that is not pure devotional service. Pure devotional service means that whatever we do, our chanting, our hearing, our service, we do it for the pleasure of Krishna. We do it for preaching work, and we do it for others. We don't do it for ourselves. So now of these four, who is the best? The best is the Jnani. Just like Maharaj Parikshit, although he wanted the association of great devotees of the Lord, he was knowledgeable because he knew about the temporality of this world. He was not trying to enjoy this world. As soon as he hears that he's going to die in 7 days, he immediately leaves home. So here, Krishna is telling us that the Jnani is the dearest to him. Although there's so many devotees, he has so many devotees. The Jnani among these four is dearest to him because he's coming to Krishna out of knowledge, not simply for material things. This person in knowledge, Krishna says, is just like myself. He's that pleased with the jnani. So jnana is very important, but just because we have jnana, we should not think that we've already become a bhakta. But our bhakti will be complemented by knowledge as well. And this is why we read Bhagavatam and we read Bhagavad Gita. Because without engaging in this process, we won't have that inspiration. Same thing with deity worship. The deity worship is always deity worship is always very nice, because one is making Krishna, one is serving Krishna just like a family member, and in that exchange, the Krishna becomes like a member of the family, and the devotee becomes a member of Krishna's families. All these devotees are undoubtedly magnanimous souls, but he who is situated in knowledge of me, I consider to be just like my own self. Now, if the jnani is so dear to Krishna, we can imagine how dear is the devotee of Krishna. How dear is how close does the devotee become to Krishna? It must be so dear. So the jnani is like the Lord, but the devotee is deeper. In the Srimad Bhagavatam 9.468, the Lord says, Sadhavo hridayam mayam sadhunam hridayam tvaham mat anyate na janati naham tebhyo manag api. The devotees are always in my heart, and I am always in the hearts of the devotees. The devotee does not know anything beyond me, and I also cannot forget the devotee. There is a very intimate relationship between me and the pure devotees. Pure devotees in full knowledge are never out of spiritual touch, and therefore they are very much dear to me. So Krishna says, Sadhavo hridayam manye, sadhunam hridayam tvaham. Devotees are always in my heart, and I am always in the heart of the devotees. That beautiful verse, in that song. Krishna therefore says, because the devotees are always in my heart, therefore offending a devotee is so serious. Here I'm just pulling up this song. This song is by Narottam Das Thakur. Yes, text 5. Tumare hridoye sada Govinda Vishram, Govinda kohina mora Vaishnava param. Your heart is always the resting place of Govinda. So Narottam Das Thakur is saying this to the pure devotee, that your heart is always the resting place of Govinda. Lord Govinda says, the Vaishnavas are in my heart. Not just to the pure devotees, to all the Vaishnavas. All the Vaishnavas are in the heart of Krishna. And therefore, every Vaishnava is very, very special to the Lord. Every Vaishnava is in Krishna's heart. And therefore, when we are hurting a Vaishnava, we are hurting Krishna's heart. When we are praising a devotee, we are praising Krishna's heart. So when we serve a devotee, then we're serving something that is very valuable to Krishna. That is Krishna's heart. So therefore, everything that we do, we must serve Krishna and become his devotee. And we must avoid offending the devotees of the Lord, because the devotees of the Lord are are very, very close to Krishna. And we have to be therefore very, very careful. So greater than the Jnani is the devotee. So then Krishna answers this question, what do we do with our material desires? The Lord says that all are magnanimous, because anyone who comes to the Lord for any purpose is called a Mahatma, or great soul. The devotees who want some benefit out of devotional service are accepted by the Lord because there is an exchange of affection. Such a beautiful sentence here, that there's an exchange of affection even when the child goes to the father asking for money or asking for food. Actually, the child should go to the father only to love the father in an unalloyed, selfless way. But the point is, even if the child goes for something, because the child is going to the father, the father is so happy. My son has come to me, is asking me for something, and therefore is willing to give him everything, anything that he wants. In the same way, even those who go to God for something material, they're also called Mahatma. For any purpose, if one goes to Krishna, I have a problem, I have a health problem, this, that, Krishna is pleased because there's still a relationship there. That's devotional service, and that's accepted by the Lord. It's not pure. Krishna will help us advance further by fulfilling our material desires in such a way that we don't want those things anymore. But Krishna still accepts the motivated devotional service of the motivated devotee, the motivation being freedom from distress. Even those who have material desires and resort to the Supreme Lord are not so much attracted by external nature. Because of approaching the right goal, they soon become free from all material lust. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is recommended that whether one is a pure devotee and is free from all material desires, or is full of material desires, or desires liberation from material contamination, he should in all cases surrender to Vasudeva and worship him. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 2.3.10, Kama sarva kama va moksha kama udardi, tivrena bhakti yogena yajeta paramam purusham param. So just 2 days ago, His Holiness Ramapad Swami spoke about on this verse, Kama sarva kama va. And this verse is one of the most important verses in the Bhagavatam, because it's saying that bhakti, the process of surrendering to Krishna and the process of bhakti, purifies us regardless if we have material desires or not. It purifies everyone, all four of these people. So therefore, the only loss is if we don't engage in devotional service. If we are engaged, eventually it will bring us to the platform of pure devotion. Why? Because here Bhagavatam, it's being said, Akama sarva kamo va. Even if you have no desire, or you have desire, or you want liberation, whatever you want, by bhakti, you can become perfect. So the process of devotional service is so nice that even if we have motivation, even if we're doing it imperfectly, the process of bhakti will drag us all the way to Krishna. The process itself works. It's just that we don't want to surrender to him. We don't want to engage in bhakti yoga. But then what is the key point in this verse? The key point is, well, it's not just that we have to engage in bhakti, but tivrena bhakti yogena. To the degree that our devotional service is intense, and we have a great longing to achieve Krishna, to that degree we will get fully purified. So here, the Bhagavatam is encouraging us, is inspiring us that we must engage in Krishna's service with utmost intensity, not just on the side, but we must engage in a service day and night, and then we will get advancement very, very quickly. Again, going back to the example of Dhruva Maharaj, that Dhruva Maharaj had material desires. He is not a pure devotee, but because he engaged in Tivrena Bhakti Yogena, because he engaged in very intense devotional service, he was able to see the Lord face to face in 6 months. And by seeing Krishna, what happens? His heart becomes purified. And the things that he went for, he could not accept. He said, I don't want these broken pieces of glass, this kingdom. Now I have found you, who are jewels. So he had material desires. He was not a pure devotee, but by the process of bhakti, he became fully purified. But very quickly. Why? Because of intensity of devotional service. In the same way, if we serve the Krishna without being fully recognized, without fully surrendering to Krishna, we can still attain him following the path of Dhruva Maharaj and become fully purified. Okay, so now next section, we're going very fast. We should end soon. Many people turn to higher forces to fulfill their needs for relief, knowledge, opulence, etc. But not all of them surrender directly to Krishna. Some turn to demigods, others to the impersonal Brahman. So these 4 types of people are pious. Why? Because when they have needs, they go directly to Krishna. They don't go to the demigods. And that is being pious. When we go to the demigods, then what happens? And that's what Krishna is answering now. So as you can see, this chapter, there's a real connection to all the sections. Like Krishna is going point by point, trying to help the reader come to the conclusion that surrendering to Krishna is the best thing to do, which is what we started this chapter with. So one thought is leading to another thought. So now, having talked about these 4 types of pious people who come directly to Krishna, Krishna speaks about the result of worshiping the demigods or meditating or simply wanting impersonal Brahman. Krishna says, very famous verses, persons controlled by material desires often surrender to demigods. Text 20. However, it is Krishna who supplies both the faith offered by the worshipper and the reward granted by the demigods. Krishna even gives the result of our worship of the demigods because he's giving everything. So why not go to the source? Even the demigods don't give. They worship the demigods, people worship the demigods, but the one giving is actually God. A living entity goes to the demigods usually because he is mad to fulfill his lust. This happens and when something undue is desired by the living entity and the Lord, this happens when something undue is desired by the living entity and the Lord himself does not fulfill the desire. I'm just reflecting on Prabhupada's statements here. So one of the things that we learn from the Isha Upanishad is the Ishavashya concept, that we should only accept what we need. The rest belongs to Krishna. Om Purnamada Purnamidam. So Krishna is especially happy with the devotees who tolerate for Krishna, because because even if something unfortunate happens, the devotee knows that Krishna is the one who fulfills desires. So Krishna has not fulfilled this desire. Therefore, Krishna wants me to go through this experience. But those who cannot accept Krishna's verdict, they then have to worship the demigods, because they still want some material benefit. They still want that material thing, which they're unable to get. Okay, so 1 second here, just 1 second. So Krishna says that those who worship the demigods, they're less intelligent, because they are worshiping Krishna, but they're doing so in the wrong way. And their intelligence is small, alpa medasam. They're small-minded. Their intelligence is small. Why? Because they're like Dhruva Maharaj. They are going for broken pieces of glass when they can ask Krishna for jewels. And who of great intelligence would reject jewels and accept broken pieces of glass? That doesn't make sense, right? So therefore, Krishna here points out that the devotee of the Lord is never worshiping the demigods. Only those who are of small intelligence, they worship the demigods. The Supreme Lord is unlimited. His favor is unlimited. His mercy is unlimited. Therefore, the mercy of the Supreme Lord upon his pure devotees is also unlimited. So if one doesn't worship the demigods, if one simply worships Krishna, then there's no limit to the mercy of Krishna upon that devotee. Just like, and this is the result of practicing bhakti rather than worshiping the demigods, that the blessings that the devotee gets is beyond the expectation of the devotee. It's a devotee thinks, if I worship Krishna, I'll be happy, or something nice will happen, or Krishna will be so beautiful. But the fact is that Krishna is so merciful to a devotee that the mercy that he gives is beyond the expectation of that devotee. There's no limit to that mercy. And then in text 24, I'm going a little fast here just to cover so we can finish in time. In text 24, Krishna talks about those who worship the impersonal Brahman. So those who worship the impersonal Brahman, they also are unintelligent, Krishna says. So here, I'll just pull this up here. So it's text 23 described the demigods, that the worshippers of the demigods have small intelligence, alpamedasam, and they're looking after temporary happiness, temporary pleasures, and then in text 24, Krishna says, avyaktam vyaktimapannam manyate mam abudhaya param bhavam ajananto mama vyayam anuttamam. Unintelligent men who do not know me perfectly think that I, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, was impersonal before and have now assumed this personality. This is exactly what the Mayavadis say. Due to their small knowledge, they do not know my higher nature, which is imperishable and supreme. So again, this is limited knowledge. Like Prabhupada gives so many times the example of the sun, the sunshine, and the sun god. A person who knows the sunshine, knows the sun, is in touch with the sun, but their knowledge is much more limited than the person who knows the sun and the sun god himself. So they have small knowledge. They don't know the true, they don't know Brahman with his energies. They only know Brahman without energies. Brahman without his energies of Krishna has so many energies, but without the energy, simply Brahman is light, is this is simply this impersonal Brahman, and that knowledge is far, far inferior than knowledge of Krishna's personality. But particularly, what the impersonalists say is that, and this is the standard Mayavad philosophy of Shankaracharya, that originally the ultimate reality is impersonal, and at a certain point, Brahman comes into personal form and becomes a person like Krishna. And then when Krishna dies, then again, we're back to Brahman. So Krishna's form and pastimes are temporary manifestations of Brahman. So Krishna is particularly refuting that argument here, that someone may say that I was avyaktam, I was not manifest before, and that I have become manifest now. That he's saying is incorrect. No, Krishna's form, Krishna's qualities are all eternal. So now we are going to quickly cover the very last section, which is overcoming the inability to recognize and serve Krishna. So we're now here, text 25 to 30. Some very nice verses here. Krishna talks about the qualities in this section of a person who is deluded, who is unable to serve Krishna. And by describing that, he's telling us how we can overcome that inability to recognize and serve Krishna. If it is true that Krishna's form and pastimes are eternal, why aren't they always visible to everyone? Krishna says, I hide myself by my Maya from the foolish and unintelligent. This is text 25. Because those who don't want Krishna, those who are turning away from Krishna, Krishna hides himself. Krishna does not reveal himself. We said, Sutrim Manigana Eva. Fools think that I can be covered by Maya. I can never be covered. I am always fully cognizant of everything, past, present, and future. I cover them, therefore. Therefore they cannot know me. So Krishna respects our free will. Those who don't want to know him, Krishna covers them so they cannot know him, so they cannot see him in this world. And a very wonderful example is given here. Prabhupada says Someone may say that Krishna as the deity is in the temple. So why can only the devotees see Krishna? But Prabhupada says, even when Krishna was here on this planet, most people could not see him as Krishna. They were seeing him, but their hearts were not changed. When Krishna was present, there were only a few people who could understand him to be the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the assembly of Kurus, when Shishupal spoke against Krishna's being elected president of the assembly, Bhishma supported him and proclaimed him to be the supreme God. Similarly, the Pandavas and a few others knew that he was the supreme, but not everyone. Right? So just because we even see Krishna, we say, oh, all my life's problems will be solved if I could just see Krishna. That's not necessarily the case, because even Duryodhana saw Krishna. When the gopis go to Krishna in Vrindavan, in the middle of the forest, then when they approach him, then Krishna tells them, go back home. Why? And now he's saying to instruct us, not really the gopis, but he says, love for me does not develop by physical proximity. Love for me develops by engaging in my devotional service, by hearing about me, by chanting about me. By doing these activities, then my love for Krishna develops. Then love for Krishna develops. So even if we're in the association of Krishna, Krishna will only reveal himself to us if we've developed love for him by serving him, by hearing and chanting about him. And finally, the last few verses, how do they become covered and when? From the very beginning, their desire and hate cause them to become bewildered by duality. So here, ichha dvesha, it's desire, material desires. I want to, I want to enjoy my senses. I want to see the movie. I want to, drink this wine. These desires and hate, dvesha, this material world is a world of duality. The spiritual world is an absolute world. The nature of Vaikuntha is no duality, perfect harmony. The nature of the material world is duality and disharmony. So hate causes us to become bewildered. So desire and hate, these two things. The very first hate, the original hate being hating Krishna, wanting to take Krishna's position, wanting to become God. That is a problem. But then that dislike of Krishna, that envy of Krishna, translates into envy of Krishna's creation. That is the other living entities. And that's why actually Prabhupada in one place gives a very nice point. He says that in this world, if we hate anyone, if we're envious of anyone, then we are actually envious of Krishna. Because we're envious of Krishna's energy. So then that means we're envious of Krishna. Everything here is Krishna's energy. It's part and parcel of Krishna. Therefore, the devotee does not hate anyone. The devotee does not embrace the tiger, but the devotee also does not hate the tiger. The devotee knows that this is Krishna's energy. And Prabhupada used to quote this particular verse when he was asked, how do we enter into this material world? Prabhupada would say, ichha dvesha, that the soul always has freedom and free will. Although in the spiritual world, everything is perfect, there's nothing lacking, and although the soul is also perfect, but the soul desires, it has freedom to turn away from Krishna. So when it gets the desire to turn away from Krishna, we come to this material world. And that's why in this material world, we cannot become proud, because none of us are the best of the bunch. All of us have come to this material world because we turned away from Krishna, because we are sinful. And due to that sinful desire, we came to this material world. So how can we think I'm better than someone else? Because it's like one prisoner in a prison house thinking, I'm a much better prisoner than the guy in the cell next to me. Look at that prisoner next to me. He's such a nonsense, right? He's such a rascal, this prisoner next to me. But we're both in the prison house. We left the spiritual world. We entered into the material world due to our anarthas, due to our misgivings, our problems. So how can we then be in this material world and think, well, gee, I'm really, really advanced. I'm really good. No, this is, we're all sort of part of the same bunch who desired to give up Krishna's association. We're part of that small minority that left Krishna due to our free will and our freedom, and we came to this material world due to Ichcha and Dvesha. How can they remove this bewilderment and come to recognize Krishna as the supreme? One can become free from the delusion of duality by ceasing to act according to desire and hate, behaving religiously and thus eradicating his sinful reactions. Then they can serve Krishna with full determination. And actually, I saw this in my own life, that this is so very true, that as long as we're on the platform of desire and hate, as long as we're on this platform, on this mental platform, it's very hard to sustain our service to Krishna. Like if we're serving in a temple or in a community, as long as we're always our mind is disturbed by, always kind of seeing good and bad, getting involved in the modes, we cannot serve Krishna with full determination. And the devotees that you see that are serving Krishna with full determination, they're beyond this. They don't care for this. They're not, like Prabhupada says, they don't engage in the Gramya Katha, this mundane gossip, the street talk that you see everywhere in this world. Why should we bring that to the temple? Why should we bring that in our spiritual life? Why should we bring that in our hearts? What does it matter? What do we gain from it? We have simply lost time. We lose our valuable human life. We lose our time. We lose our energy. And I see this in my own life. So much time is wasted. Better just to be fully focused in what is the service that I have received, and do that service nicely for Krishna, and do it in a way that is pleasing to the devotees. That is Madhyamadikari, that they're serving Krishna, but not just serving Krishna and then they're blind to the people around them. No, they're not on this level of friend and enemy. I like this person, but I don't like that person. This person, my friend, is everyone's the same, right? We mentioned everyone's in the prison house, pretty much. We still have to make some distinctions on practicality. Someone's higher, someone's lower, but there's no hate. Someone is more advanced, someone is less. But a devotee knows how to serve Krishna in the association of devotees very harmoniously. And when we see when an advanced devotee like this comes in the association of devotees, that advanced devotee who's beyond desire and hate uplifts that entire association and that entire atmosphere. So really the problem is not around us, the problem is us, because if we have that consciousness, we actually uplift our surrounding. Just like His Holiness Romapad Swami is currently visiting Naperville, and we see as soon as he comes in this Sangha of devotees, everyone's uplifted. Everyone's fully engaged in hearing and chanting classes, spiritual consciousness. People just want to serve together. Why? Because there's that full determination of the devotee. I'm going to skip some things. Text 29. Prabhupada makes the point, sometimes due to intelligence, one desires to be freed from old age and death, and therefore takes refuge in Krishna's service. He can also get free from bewilderment and become a devotee. Those who thus surrender to Krishna can know him, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, even at the difficult time of death. So now Krishna comes to this final point, which leads to the segue of the 8th chapter. That why is all of this knowledge relevant to us? It is relevant, it is necessary, it is essential, because through this surrender, by giving up ichha dvesha, by giving up desire, material desires, material hatred, and simply surrendering to Krishna in unalloyed love, we can remember Krishna at the time of death. Because see, what happens if we're not free, if we're not fully surrendered to Krishna, and we're not free from desire and hate, then at the time of our death, we'll remember that which we desire or that which we hate. Our final words, our final thoughts will go in that direction. But if we're surrendered to Krishna, then our final thoughts and desires will go only towards Krishna. And so this actually is, we've completed it. I just want to go back and skip the one slide that I did skip. There's two statements that we find. One in Bhagavad Gita 7:28, which we are reading right now in this chapter. That statement is, persons who have acted piously in previous lives and in this life, and whose sinful actions are completely eradicated, are freed from the dualities of delusion, and they engage themselves in my service with determination. Right? So Krishna here is saying that by previous piety, we're ultimately able to engage in the service of the Lord with determination. It's not easy. One has to develop their pious credit in order to do that. And then in chapter 4, text 36, Krishna said, even if you're considered to be the most sinful of all sinners, when you're situated in the boat of transcendental knowledge, you will be able to cross over the ocean of material miseries. So how do we reconcile these two things? Krishna is saying, on one hand, you have to be pious to surrender to Krishna. On the other hand, he's saying, even if you're the greatest of sinners, you can still cross over this ocean of material existence. Well, both things are true. The way we reconcile it is that if someone has come to devotional service, they must have performed some pious activities in their previous life to do so. But at the same time, if someone is fortunate and receives transcendental knowledge from the devotee, they can cross over this nescience simply because of the mercy of that devotee. The mercy of the devotee due to which we get the spiritual knowledge. Like Shukadeva Goswami gave Parikshit Maharaj and others, they're giving that spiritual knowledge due to which we're able to cross this ocean of material existence. And this knowledge, this transcendental knowledge is bhakti. So the Bhagavatam is bhakti, right? So by getting the knowledge of the Bhagavatam, by hearing the Bhagavatam, one is able to cross over this ocean of nescience. And that is the power of transcendental knowledge given by the pure devotee. So this is the final summary. These are all the sections of this chapter. Text 1 to 3, we said that we can know Krishna by hearing about him. Text 4 to 12, knowing Krishna, we can know Krishna's material and spiritual energies by seeing him in all things, like the taste of water. Text 13 and 14, Krishna controls the modes of nature. We're unable to see Krishna in all things because of the modes of nature. So therefore, Krishna says, surrender to him. Text 15 through 19, the impious never surrender, the pious do. So Krishna talks about who surrenders and who doesn't, the 4 types of people who don't, the 4 types of people who do, which we covered today. Then text 20 to 25, he says, some surrender to the demigods and others to the impersonal aspect of God, but they are bewildered because they have limited knowledge, and due to that limited knowledge, they're surrendering to Krishna. And finally, one can overcome Ichcha and Vesha, this bewilderment, by surrendering to Krishna, by knowing Krishna. One can gain freedom from this bewilderment of the material world, and because of that, remember Krishna at the time of death, which is chapter 8. So I will stop here. We have maybe just 10-15 minutes for questions. If anyone has any questions or comments, now is the time to ask. Once again, I apologize for the delay in starting and for some of the technical difficulties I had in the beginning. Purnamasi Mataji, your hand is up. Maybe it's up from before, but.
Yes, Prabhu, sorry. I just lowered it.
That's okay. Was this chapter clear? Anyone have any doubts or want further clarification?
I kind of had a question of advice from one of the verses that we discussed. I was trying to figure what verse. I think I wrote down that it was 27, but something you said, correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm remembering it wrong, that you said that if we are envious of a devotee, then we're being envious of Krishna because we're in his heart. And I just kind of wanted to ask for advice because envy's been coming up for me a lot in my reflections. And I had a devotee friend who I shared some really good news with him that I felt Krishna had pointed me in the right direction. You know, I'd taken a next step in my life, and I was really excited to share it with this particular friend of mine. And they responded and told me that they were envious of me. And I understand that it could be out of excitement for me, but for some reason when I heard that, I kind of felt it felt uncomfortable for me. I felt like it was kind of overlooking Krishna's part here. Like I understood, I had presented it to her that this wasn't my doing. I felt like it was presented to me from Krishna. Would you have any advice on speaking to devotees about situations like that?
That's a very nice question.
I feel like it's not my space to, I don't know, correct anybody, but
yes.
Yeah.
No, nice point of question that happens often. And I'm a little surprised that they responded that they were envious of you. Generally, people say, oh, I'm jealous, right? They say, oh, I'm jealous. And actually, that's okay. There's a difference between jealousy and envy. We should not be envious, but we can be jealous, although even that's not recommended, but we can. So what's the difference? Jealousy means that when we see someone is fortunate or has something very wonderful, we also want to be like them. So we see someone driving a Mercedes and we say, I also want a Mercedes. And we get a Mercedes because we're jealous of them and we're also driving a Mercedes. What envy is that when we see someone driving a Mercedes, we say, oh, it'll be so good. It'll be so good if that person gets into an accident and dies. Or I want that person walking on the street and I want to ride in the Mercedes. Envy is when it's not that we also don't want what that person has, which is jealousy, which is okay. Everyone wants to be happy, so we also want what someone else has. But envy is when we want what the other person has and we want them not to have it. So jealousy is when we also want to be in someone else's shoes, or envy is when we want the other person not to have shoes and we should have shoes, right? So devotees can have transcendental jealousy, just like Andrew Prabhu wrote in the chat box, when we see someone doing beautiful kirtan in the temple, we say, I also want to sing like that for Krishna. 24-hour kirtan, right? He's saying, you feel jealous of these devotees who are so fortunate for their taste in the holy name, or just because they're so absorbed. And we also want to be absorbed. That's so good. That's okay. But if we say, I want to be absorbed, and that devotee should fall back into Maya, or I want to be more advanced than that devotee, and like that, just the same thing that I was saying, that's a problem. So to your friend, you have to tell them that I share this with you, and it's okay to be jealous, but not okay to be envious. And sometimes, because people are envious and jealous based upon who they are, it's better if we don't tell them. So this time, maybe it was the first time you told your friend, but maybe next time you won't tell them, because we don't want to kindle their envy or jealousy. And that's something like common sense, right? Just like someone has a lot of money, but they may not tell everyone that they do, because they don't want people to be jealous of them. And that's that's just intelligence. They shouldn't be envious of them, but given that they are human and they have a tendency to be envious or jealous, the devotee reduces the possibility by acting in such a way as to reduce the envy that may be generated from the devotee's good fortune. So you share your heart with more advanced devotees who can handle that news, who won't become jealous of you or envious of you. And that may just be through trial and error. You figure out that, well, this person is still struggling with these envy and jealousy, and so I won't tell them everything that I tell a more advanced devotee.
Thank you. I feel very relieved that I asked you that, and now I can sit with that a bit better and process how I want to respond. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for reminding us by your question. It's a nice question. Any other questions or comments? Anita Mataji? Your hand
Yes,
is up.
Prabhu. I have a question. Probably this question reflects the previous chapter, which is Dhyan Yoga. Right. My question is that in current age, Bhakti Yoga is the topmost, and chanting is the best way to achieve the goal, right? But in Satya Yoga, chanting wasn't the right way. At that time was Dhyan Yoga. So Dhyan Yoga, my understanding is not to dhyan on a Krishna. Dhyan Yoga is also the part of impersonal God, right? Impersonal form of Krishna. So my question is here that at the time of Satyuga time, do we have a Raganuga Bhakti or just the Ragatmika Bhakti? I mean, it doesn't get the clear to me that what kind of Bhakti we were doing at that time.
Yes, very nice question. Your understanding is a little incorrect. In every age, the best process is bhakti. The only process of reaching Krishna is bhakti. So it's not that in previous ages, dhyana was the best process. Devotion or love for God, bhakti, is always the highest process. It's the ultimate process to reach the Lord. But that bhakti in Satyug was expressed by meditating upon Krishna, by meditating upon the form of Krishna. So how Prabhupada says in the Gita that every yoga in its purest form is bhakti yoga. So when the mother or the lover is looking at the picture of their son or beloved or their daughter, and tears are flowing down their eyes, they are meditating on the child, but they're meditating in love. Right? Prabhupada gives the example of the shoes of the small child. The mother may see the small shoes of the child and tears may come in the mother's eyes, remembering the child, even though now that child is so much grown up, the childhood of that child. That's why they keep pictures and all these things. So that's meditation, but it's meditation and love. It's still bhakti, it's still love. But love is being expressed through meditation. Same thing with fire sacrifices, same thing with deity worship in the other ages, Treta, Dvapar, and now Kali Yuga, that bhakti, the highest way of expressing that bhakti, the easiest path to God, the easiest way of realizing bhakti, or you could say increasing our bhakti, is chanting the holy names of Krishna. So the process changes, but all the processes are in their purest form bhakti yoga. And bhakti is the highest thing. And therefore in bhakti, you have raganuga, you have ragatmika, they're all there. Now in this age, Lord Chaitanya made it very easily accessible. And that's why in this day and age, we can access love for Krishna very easily. So yes, so that's the point.
So at that time, there wasn't Raganuga Bhakti, because Raganuga Bhakti is like a kind of topmost Bhakti. So it was there at that time?
Yes, it was there. That's the thing. It was more accessible now because of Lord Chaitanya's mercy. Anyone can get it, which was unfounded of before by his mercy. But we read about the sages who had wanted to have a conjugal relationship with Lord Ramachandra, but who could not because Lord Ram was a man, and that form of bhakti could not be expressed by sages to them. And also he had taken the vow of one wife. So therefore those sages were born again as the gopis in Krishna's Leela. And then they could express that longing to love Krishna in that spontaneous way as gopis in Dvapar Yuga. But those sages were practicing in Satyug. So they had love for Krishna in the spontaneous way. The love for Krishna was very, very spontaneous and on the highest stage of ecstasy. It exists, but it's not that common in the way that Lord Chaitanya gave it freely.
Yep. That's great, Prabhu. Thank you.
Thank you. Very nice question. Okay. All right. Anything else? Any final question, comment? So your chapter 7 will be due this week and next week, by the end of this week. And next week we will start on chapter 8. Thank you very much for your kind attention. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai.
Yay.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prabhu.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Thank you. Haribol. Nice to see you.